Calvin Ridley dominated practice on Wednesday, and that is exactly what the Tennessee Titans were looking for. I'll break down everything you need to know on today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast.
You are Locked On Titans, your daily Tennessee Titans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Titans podcast. I am your host, Tyler Rowland. Titans fans, today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Speaking of faster, Calvin Ridley is faster than everyone else, and he used that speed to dominate practice on Wednesday. I'm going to tell you everything that happened, plus the starting right guard battle has only just begun. And there were more injuries than we'd like to see at Wednesday's practice. I'll go over all the latest updates before we get into all of it. Do want to thank you for making Locked On Titans your first listen each and every day. Remember, Monday through Friday, Tennessee Titans content all year round, always for free. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. It's your team every day here on the #1 Tennessee Titans podcast in the world. Speaking of every day, shout out to my everydayers out there tuning in Monday through Friday. Couldn't do it without you guys. Speaking of every day, tomorrow the Titans have another practice, and then we have a preseason game, a Tennessee Titans game on Saturday. I'm going to have a bonus episode out on Friday for you guys as a preview to the preseason game. I'm going to be going live immediately after the preseason game is over to break down all the action. You aren't going to want to miss any of the free content that I'm going to be putting out this year. Make sure that you get subscribed, stay subscribed. Again, it's your team every day here on the Locked On Titans podcast. But with all that being said, again, the star of the day on Wednesday was Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley absolutely diced up the Tennessee Titans defense. And what's crazy is you heard from Will Levis after practice, and you heard from Brian Callahan before practice. Brian Callahan talked about how the connection, especially on the deep ball, between Calvin Ridley and Will Levis was not quite where they wanted it to be. It wasn't quite full steam ahead quite yet for Ridley and Levis on the deep ball. And then at practice on Wednesday, we got multiple deep throws to Calvin Ridley. Sideline toe tappers, right sideline, left sideline for a big gain. Then they hit a 60-yard bomb down the field. According to Jim Wyatt, Calvin Ridley caught 5 passes at Wednesday's practice, which is his best day of training camp so far. This is what we want to hear, folks. This is exactly what the Tennessee Titans were hoping for. And I just find it so poetic that we start with Brian Callahan acknowledging, yeah, the connection isn't quite there as good as we want it yet. And then we hear about the performance in practice. And then after practice, Will Levis is like, yeah, this is going to help our confidence. Days like today, stacking days like today is going to help our confidence. This is, see, when I was preaching patience at the beginning of training camp with the offense, this is the kind of stuff that I expected. Through time, through repetition, through over and over and over again practice reps, they're going to build this connection. It's going to work. And I talked about the calibration of Calvin Ridley's speed compared to the other wide receivers that Will Levis threw to last year. It's just not the same. It's just not quite the same. So it's going to take a little bit of time. But again, immediately at today's practice, we saw Calvin Ridley have his best day so far, look like an absolute unstoppable star for the Titans. And this brings me back to my ultimate point. This is exactly what the Tennessee Titans paid for. This is why you go out and you pay Calvin Ridley. I made an episode before free agency called All In on Calvin Ridley, is what the episode was called, because I wanted Calvin Ridley desperately to be added to this team. He is exactly what this team needed. Route running expert, one of the best route runners in the NFL. I remember when A.J. Brown was still on the Titans. Pour one out. What a great time that was. But they asked A.J. Brown who his favorite wide receivers were, and Calvin Ridley was one of them because he called him one of the best route runners in the entire NFL, and it's true. He's one of the fastest players in the NFL in terms of game speed out on the field. Like, that is the complete opposite of what the Tennessee Titans had last year. Superb route running, incredible speed. It's like Mike Vrabel purposely wanted opposite from that in his wide receiver group. Maybe because of the scheme that they wanted on offense. We'll never know the truth. We'll never know the truth as to what Mike Vrabel was thinking at wide receiver. But this is why it always made sense for the Titans to pay Calvin Ridley what they paid him, because he is going to have such a major impact on this offense. Like, and again, this is why Calvin Ridley was my favorite offseason move for the Tennessee Titans. Over L'Jarius Sneed, Tony Pollard, Lloyd Cushenberry, drafted J.C. Latham, all of that. My favorite offseason move, even adding the coaching staff. My favorite offseason move was grabbing Calvin Ridley because of what he can mean to the Tennessee Titans offense. So to see him out there absolutely dusting folks. And look, no L'Jarius Sneed, no Cheetah Awuzie. I get it. You want to say the Titans' top two corners aren't guarding him out there. But the Titans aren't always going to see two cornerbacks that are as good as L'Jarius Sneed and Cheetah. Like, look around the division. The Jags, the Colts especially, their cornerbacks, their whole secondary is yikes. And now Justin Simmons is meeting with the Saints. So if he doesn't go to the Colts, that'll be hilarious. You know, I mean, Houston has Derek Stingley Jr., who's pretty good corner. But, I mean, Calvin Ridley is going up against cornerbacks that probably are similar to what he's going to face in the division, at least. You know what I mean? So I'm just excited for that chemistry, that confidence. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. The Titans need Calvin Ridley to be their number one wide receiver. They are paying him like their number one wide receiver. He has the ability to be the number one wide receiver. That is the connection that matters more than any other connection in this offense, Will Levis and Calvin Ridley. If they can get that perfect and get in sync with each other all season long, that is going to be a combination that creates explosive plays, that puts points on the board, that gets the Titans out of bad situations. Two of those catches were crazy back shoulder fades. And a back shoulder fade is literally unstoppable if the quarterback and the wide receiver have great chemistry. Look at Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers for years. You just literally couldn't do anything about it. If the quarterback puts it in the right spot and the wide receiver runs a good enough route to get a touch of separation, it's literally unstoppable. So this is great news for the Titans. This is what we want to see. Calvin Ridley going nuts, him and Levis being connected. Great news for Titans fans. Now we got to talk about that starting right guard battle because it may not be as clear and obvious as some think. We'll dive into that now. Before we get into it, though, I do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has 2.5 million small businesses using it for hire every single year. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Titans fans, let's continue today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. Talked about Calvin Ridley going nuts at practice on Wednesday. Love to see that. But now we got to talk about this starting right guard battle because it doesn't appear to be as clear cut as maybe some of us thought. Before we get into that, though, I do want to thank you again for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen. For your second listen, enjoy Locked On Fantasy Football. You're going to get daily insights to the best fantasy draft strategies so you can win your league this season. It's Locked On Fantasy Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, folks. So when Saahdiq Charles retires, shockingly, in the middle of training camp, the instant reaction, for me at least, and for a lot of people, is Dillon Radunz. Oh, it's time for Dillon Radunz to step up. Now Dillon Radunz will be the starting right guard. Blah, 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 blah. It makes the most sense. He was second on the depth chart. However, it does not seem like the team thinks that it's that simple. Okay, so at practice on Wednesday, there was a rotation. It wasn't just Dillon Radunz working with the first team offense consistently. Andrew Rupcich out of Culver Stockton College, low-level college football, was an undrafted free agent for the Titans last year. Got some starts at guard at the end of the season. He started, I think, the last 3 games of the year for the Titans, so it would have been Seattle, Houston, and then the last game of the year against Jacksonville. And look, he performed okay in pass protection. Like, he had some good moments in pass protection. I don't think Andrew Rupcich was terrible last year, but he's not maybe the best run blocker ever, which, looking at what the Titans were looking for on the offensive line, if you look at a guy like Saahdiq Charles, for example, use his skill set, much more of a power run blocking player than he was like an agile pass protector. So I don't think that Dillon Radunz or Andrew Rupcich are necessarily the type of guard that Bill Callahan and the Titans offense would want, just based on them bringing in Saahdiq Charles, giving him the starting spot. So based on that, it seems obvious that, Radunz and Rupcich wouldn't be their type of guy if they had their way, but that's who they have now. And Daniel Brunskill, while having experience at guard, he's an even, I don't want to say worse, because Daniel Brunskill is a better football player than Andrew Rupcich right now, but Daniel Brunskill is even lighter than those two guys. He's even, I don't want to say weaker. That doesn't seem fair. We're talking about a really, really strong, big human being at the end of the day in Daniel Brunskill. I mean, he's 6'5", 300 pounds, and an NFL player. But Rupcich and Radunz are going to have more natural strength to them. They're just thicker-bodied guys than Daniel Brunskill. So I think while they may not be a perfect fit for what the Titans want skill set-wise and body type-wise, they're still the best options. But I just found it fascinating that literally day one, you would think, all right, we're going to give Dillon Radunz a shot. It wasn't even half of practice before they were taking Radunz out and letting Andrew Rupcich get some opportunities. Brian Callahan even said it's going to be a competition still. Just because Saahdiq Charles retired doesn't mean that we immediately hand it over to Dillon Radunz. And it just continues this. I have no other explanation other than to say, we all must be seeing something different. This is 2 coaching staffs in a row now that just don't seem to be a very big fan of Dillon Radunz and giving him a clean opportunity. Nobody wants to just give Radunz the opportunity to do the job. There is something there. If you would have told me that Dillon Radunz is at starting right guard and Andrew Rupcich is going to be there, I would say, okay, Rupcich should be the backup. I would not have told you, admittedly, that Andrew Rupcich would truly be battling with Dillon Radunz for the starting right guard spot. I don't think that makes a lot of sense to me. I would tell you that Dillon Radunz is a better player, and it should be obvious. Well, clearly there's just something about Dillon Radunz behind the scenes that these coaches just do not believe in him. They just don't. There's no confidence there. For them to, on the very first practice, already start the rotation and say, hey, Radunz doesn't have this spot, we're going to let Rupcich try it out. I mean, I guess they're telling you their truth with their actions. The words are the words, but the actions are more important. So we will see how that plays out. Again, I'm a believer in Dillon Radunz. I don't think that Dillon Radunz is an all-pro or a Pro Bowl level player. I don't think he's one of the best offensive linemen in the league. I just think he's a low-level starting offensive lineman in the NFL. He can be your 5th best starter on your offensive line. He could just be Again, just another guy, kind of like Daniel Brunskill, just a little bit bigger. Like Daniel Brunskill is a starting guard in the NFL in certain schemes. Obviously not the Titans. They don't, value that in that way, but like he's not impossible to replace. There's a term, and I always say it on the show, in the NFL, it's been in the NFL for decades, called a JAG. J-A-G. Just another guy. And 70% of the NFL is a JAG. You could replace him. Think about an Azeez Al-Shire, a Tierre Tart, an Arden Key, a Nicholas Petit-Ferrer, a Dillon Radunz, a Daniel Brunskill, an Aaron Brewer. You know what I mean? Think about guys like that. They're just another guy. They're not overly special in any way. You could probably call 10 teams and just, hey, we'll give you Daniel Brunskill for your right guard and just switch them, and it wouldn't make any difference to the team at all because they're just another guy, okay? So, to me, I feel like Dillon Radunz can be that. That is Dillon Radunz. He's just another guy. He could just be a low-level, average to slightly below average starter in the NFL. But I might even be wrong about that if Andrew Rupsich beats him out, which I don't think is going to happen, but I mean, opinion versus facts is a different conversation here. That's my opinion of what's happening versus the fact of what does happen. It's two different things here. This is what I think should happen, but what actually does happen is a different thing. So I just think that this is the number one thing that we all need to watch here in the preseason as joint practices take place, as we get closer to cut down day and closer to the regular season. This open starting right guard spot is the most important thing to watch as we move forward throughout camp because it is going to have a major impact on the Titans season. Like they simply cannot be devastatingly bad on the right side or they're not going to be able to hit their potential. We're not going to get the look at Will Levis that we're all hoping to get. It's going to be a little bit of what we saw last year. And remember, J.C. Latham is a rookie. He's going to have his stumbles and his issues along the way. It's very rare that a rookie left tackle comes in and is great right away. Like Rashawn Slater, Christian Darrisaw are the ones in recent memory. So maybe he does something like that, but this is something to watch. This is something to worry about, something to be concerned about, something to keep your eye on. This is a big one, folks. So Andrew Rupsich, Dillon Radunz fighting for the starting right guard spot. I don't really think that Daniel Brunskill is in that mix, to be honest with you. I think they would put Daniel Brunskill there if there were injuries, but with Brunskill being slimmer than those guys, I think they want to keep him at backup center. But with that being said, there were some injuries on Wednesday. Unfortunately, quite a bit of injuries, and we need to kind of go over some of those. And I want to talk about Arden Key again because Brian Callahan had a really weird comment about Arden Key that I simply don't agree with. I think it's insane, if I'm honest with you. So we'll talk about that now. Before we do, though, do want to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets. Okay, it's summertime. Football season's almost here, indeed, and the fall is right around the corner. I can't wait. It's been so hot for so long. I'm tired of it. I'm a fall guy, winter guy. That's what I like. But while we're in summer, it's a perfect time to go to a Major League Baseball game, and there is no better place to buy tickets for MLB games than Game Time. All-in prices, so you know what you're actually going to pay for your ticket when you see the ticket price. A view from your seat, so you know what you're going to be looking at when you sit down. The Game Time guarantee, so you know that you're paying the lowest price for your tickets. You're not going to get all that anywhere else. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Titans fans, let's cap off today's edition of the Locked On Titans podcast. We're recapping Wednesday's training camp practice. Calvin Ridley went wild. The starting right guard battle rages on. Now, unfortunately, we got to talk about some injury news because there were some injuries. Also want to talk Arden Key. I know that's not an injury, suspension, missed time, whatever. We're going to get into it. Before I do, though, thanks again, of course, for making the Locked On Titans podcast your first listen today. Now go listen to Locked On Fantasy Football. You're going to get daily insights to the best fantasy draft strategies so you can win your league. You can find the link to Locked On Fantasy Football in the description down below so you don't even need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'll start with Arden Key just quickly. So we know that Arden Key is facing a 6-game suspension for PEDs. We know that, okay? But we don't know, like, when that's actually going to happen. It got reported a while ago, and we still haven't heard any definitive news, I guess, to whether or not that suspension's coming. I have a theory that right now Arden Key is appealing that suspension. So rather than release it and say, hey, it's a 6-game suspension for Arden Key, and then Arden Key do the appeal, Arden Key is appealing right now, and then the NFL will come out and say whether it's a reduced suspension, whether it's a suspension, whatever. But Brian Callahan did say on Wednesday that they expect Arden Key to miss some time. Okay. The question becomes then, why is Arden Key still working with the starting group? Why is Arden Key still with the ones if you know he's going to miss time? And Brian Callahan basically said, like, we're not going to take him out of the starting lineup until we hear officially from the NFL about his suspension. But at the same time, he also said that we expect he's going to miss some time. So if you know that he's going to miss some time, why would you wait for the NFL to officially announce the suspension before you make the change? Like, to me, that is being reactive, not proactive. If you know that he's going to be suspended at some point, then why would you wait to address that until you actually hear the official word? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. To me, here's an example for you. To me, this would be like your brakes going out. You hear the brakes grinding on your rotors. You can hear it every time you come to a stop. To me, this is like saying, oh, well, I know my brakes are going out, but I'm not going to get them fixed until they go out completely and I can't stop my car. Like, why would you wait until the problem is literally at your doorstep to be ready for it when you could see the problem coming down the street? Like, I just don't understand the philosophy there of, hey, we know he's going to get suspended, but it hasn't been announced yet, so we're not going to address it in practice. We need to get Rashad Weaver into the first team. Let Jalen Harrell run with the first team. You need to start your plan for what your defense is going to look like after Arden Key's suspension truly comes out, especially because Brian Callahan said, we know that he's going to miss some time. So it's not like there's a chance that he doesn't miss any time and you don't need to make any changes. They admitted they knew he will miss some time. So why would you wait? Again, why would you wait until your brakes are completely out to change them when you can hear them grinding every time you stop? It's like waiting until your tank is on E and trying to run it out rather than just stopping at the gas station on the highway and filling up beforehand. It's a bit perplexing to me. Logically, it doesn't all make sense. So I just wanted to mention that real quick before I go into the injuries. Caleb Farley. We're all rooting for Caleb Farley to stay healthy and have a chance. He missed Sunday's practice with a hamstring injury. And then he went out again on Wednesday with a hamstring or some sort of issue, left with a trainer. Just unfortunate. I think he did come back out onto the field, according to reports. I believe it was Teron Davenport from ESPN who reported that he did come back out on the field. But to me, that kind of feels like I'm hurt, but I know that if I'm hurt, I'm done. So I'm just going to go out there and try, You just feel so badly for Caleb Farley, but his body just can't handle the NFL. It just can't. Cedric Gray Titans rookie linebacker left practice early. Didn't return. Garrett Wallow, Titans linebacker, according to Brian Callahan, tore his pectoral muscle. He is out for the season. So Garrett Wallow gets the backup linebacker spot. He's second string linebacker on this team. And then immediately gets hurt on Sunday and is out for the season. Feel bad for the guy. Finally got his opportunity. JoJo Domann, who I've talked about a little bit, third string linebacker for the Titans. I think you could probably even call him fourth string linebacker. Didn't sound like a good injury for him. He got carried off the field by trainers. According to reports, had a big limp. Not good for JoJo Domann. Again, I didn't think JoJo Domann was going to make this team, but I like JoJo Domann coming out of Nebraska in college, so I feel bad. That's unfortunate. But again, I don't think that's a huge impact on the Titans season. Also, Treylon Burks at the end of practice tried to jump up and catch a ball, came down hard, kind of limped off. It looks like he was okay. It was right at the end of practice, so there wasn't really a chance to prove whether he was okay or not because he, practice was over. So, but I think he's okay. I think the reports are that he's okay, nothing big. But again, I have lauded Treylon Burks for his balance issues. When he goes up for a football and he jumps in the air, he just doesn't have very good body control when he's on his way back down to kind of shield himself in a protective way and not get hurt. He's just once he jumps out there, he's just loses all control. You know what I mean? And it's balance issues as well with his running. Think about I'm not going to say anything about the Eagles game. That was a cheap shot. That was a dirty play. That's not Treylon Burks' fault. But getting the concussion in the Steelers game, bad body control, falling the way that he fell. Falling is a skill, folks. Some of the best receivers in the NFL would tell you that the way they fall, the way that they get down to the ground, they do it purposefully to avoid big injuries. You know what I mean? Having that control of your body in midair is an athletic skill that Treylon Burks just doesn't have a lot of. Also, you go back to the Vikings injury in joint practices last year, a balance issue. He's on a deep route. He catches a deep post in the back of the end zone. He can't control himself after he catches the ball, and he overextends one of his legs, and then, boom, turns into an injury at the knee. It's like a baby deer. You know what I mean? A baby deer has these really long legs, and they want to go fast, but they don't quite have control of themselves yet, so they kind of all over the place. That's what Treylon Burks is like. It's like he's too big for what his brain thinks his body will do. He just can't marry the two together. You know what I mean? It's tough. I mean, all the talent in the world, but it's just a consistent theme with Burks. These jumps up for a pass, lands hard, and gets hurt. You got to have some sort of body control midair to not come down as hard as he comes down. That's a real skill. And it's just something that he's lacking at this time. Let's hope he's perfectly fine, though. The last name that I want to bring up here is Jamal Adams. So Jamal Adams didn't practice again. It's been over a week now since Jamal Adams practiced. And it was reported by Jim White of TennesseeTitans.com as rest last week. But then today or Wednesday, Brian Callahan said that Jamal Adams has been out with soreness and they're on a maintenance plan. Soreness from what? That's an injury. That's being hurt. If he's sore from something, that's not rest. He's sore. That rest is you're fine, but we're just resting you just in case. This is you're resting him because he's sore. What sore? His surgically repaired, whatever. Is that sore? Is he already having issues with that? This was one of my concerns about Jamal Adams. He just cannot stay healthy. His body is broken down. In theory, his role within the defense does make sense, especially now with Quandre Diggs signed. Now it makes total sense. I'm perfectly fine. They added another safety. Great. But this is the concern with Jamal Adams. It's not that he's absolute garbage and can't play football. It's that he can't stay healthy. His body has given up on him. And as you get older in professional football and you play the physical style he plays, that will happen. So let's hope the rest that they're giving Jamal Adams right now will get him ready for the regular season, because him already being sore after, 3 or 4 practices? Definitely not what you want to hear. But Titans have practice again on Thursday. I'm going to be here to recap it. You'll get a bonus episode on Friday night for my preview of the preseason game and a bonus live episode after the Titans preseason game on Saturday night. And then we'll be right back into 5 days of shows. I mean, I'm basically going to be doing a podcast every single day for like the next 3 weeks in a row, like 7 days a week, not just 5. Nobody out here creating Titans content is working as hard as I am for you guys, period, point blank. So get subscribed, stay subscribed, throw a thumbs up on the video, throw a Titan up in the chat. That's going to do it for me today, folks. As always, I am your host, Tyler Rowland, and this was Locked On Titans.